Hello and welcome back to Study Room. So we are having our last video lecture for this chapter number 3, and in this chapter we are just going to do the quick revision of all the topics that we have already studied. So let's revise. So all the concepts in this chapter, they started from a curve. So we studied first of all that a curve is a geometrical figure obtained when a number of points are joined without lifting the pencil from the paper and without retracing any portion. That is, when we join number of points without lifting our pen from the paper and without retracing any portion, we get a curve. There are two types of curves that we studied, an open curve and a closed curve. An open curve was the curve where we'll never get back to the point. We'll never get a path back to one point. While a closed curve, there was a path back to the point. A polygon, we studied about a polygon. A polygon is actually a simple closed curve made up of only line segments. We get a polygon, right? Now, classification of polygons on basis of regularity. We first of all saw the classification on the basis of regularity. So, on the basis of regularity, there were two types of polygons, a regular polygon and irregular polygon. Then, on the basis of number of sides, we studied that if a polygon has 3 sides, that is a triangle. If it has 4 sides, that is a quadrilateral. If the polygon has 5 sides, that is a pentagon. 6 sides will be a hexagon. 7 sides will be a heptagon. 8 sides will be an octagon. 9 sides will be a nonagon. And 10 sides polygon will be called a decagon. That was all on the basis of the number of sides, or we can say the number of vertices. Then we studied about the classification of polygons on the basis of their shapes. On the basis of shape, polygons are of two types, a concave polygon and a convex polygon. These are the two types of polygons on the basis of their shape. Then we studied about what a diagonal is. A diagonal is actually a line segment that connects two non-consecutive vertices of a polygon. That is, such a line segment is a diagonal. We studied about the angle sum property of a polygon. What does the angle sum property of a polygon states? It states that the sum of all interior angles of a polygon will be equal to n minus 2 into 180 degree, where this n is the number of sides that the polygon has, and is the number of sides of the polygon. The sum of the measures of all the external angles of any polygon is always going to be 360 degree. The sum of the external angles of the polygon will be 360 degree. We studied this. Then we studied the types of quadrilaterals. One of them was trapezium. So trapezium was a quadrilateral that has a pair of parallel sides. Here this is parallel to this side, so this is a trapezium. This has the property that there is exactly one pair of parallel sides. Exactly one pair of parallel sides will be in a trapezium. We studied the type of quadrilateral, that was kite. So kite is actually a quadrilateral with exactly two pair of equal consecutive sides. So the consecutive sides are equal and there are two pairs of such consecutive equal sides. In a kite, the diagonals are perpendicular to each other. The diagonals will be perpendicular to one another and one of the diagonal will bisect each other. So these diagonals, these diagonals of a kite are going to be perpendicular, and one of the diagonal will bisect. So this diagonal is going to bisect this diagonal and these two parts will be equal. Another quadrilateral was parallelogram. So what is a parallelogram? It is a quadrilateral whose opposite sides will be parallel. So this side is parallel to this side and this side is parallel to this side. So this is a quadrilateral. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral that has opposite sides as parallel. Opposite sides are equal. Opposite angles are equal. For parallelogram, the opposite sides will be equal. The opposite angles will be equal. Right? And what other property? that the diagonals will bisect one another. Diagonals are going to bisect one another for a parallelogram. And the adjacent angles will be supplemented. So the angles that are adjacent are going to be supplemented. That is, their sum is going to be 180 degree. What did we study then? We studied about rhombus also. So what was a rhombus? A rhombus was actually a parallelogram with all the sides of equal length. All the sides, if all the sides of a parallelogram are equal, it is a rhombus, and all the properties of a parallelogram are going to hold true for this rhombus. What other properties were for a rhombus? That all sides will be equal and the diagonals will be perpendicular to each other. These diagonals will be perpendicular bisectors for a rhombus. These were the extra properties for a rhombus. Then we studied about a rectangle, a parallelogram with a right angle, with all the angles as right angles will be a rectangle. All the properties of a parallelogram will hold true for rectangle because rectangle is also a type of parallelogram. We studied this. But what were the other properties? That each of the angle is going to be a right angle and the diagonals will also be equal, right? So for a rectangle, all the angles will be 90 degree, will be right angles, and the diagonals will be equal to each other. These diagonals are going to be equal to each other. Last, we studied about a square. So what is a square? A square is actually a type of rectangle, a rectangle that has all the sides of equal length. So when all the sides of a rectangle are equal, then it will be a square. All the properties of a parallelogram will hold true for a square. All the properties of a rhombus will also hold true for a square, and all the properties of a rectangle are also going to be holding true for a square. These are the properties of square. So this was all about the quick revision as well. These were all the topics that we studied under this chapter, chapter number 3. We'll meet again in the next chapter. Thank you for joining me on Study Room. Goodbye. We'll meet again.